for my voice, but I have never seen anything like it.
Do you believe in miracles? Yes! Unbelievable.
Welcome to the show. Andrew Zimmel, your host as always. I have a very good interview with a guy by the name of Sam Ouhaj. And if you've not heard of him, if you've never heard that name before, you're going to want to keep it in your hat because this guy is going to be very big very soon. We got him as his star is rising, I promise you guys. So you're going to want to listen to this interview. It is essentially the rise and fall of a 17-year-old working in sports media. Well, I shouldn't say fall. It's a tumble right now. It's a trip to greater things, I think. I think he's going to fall into something really great. So that interview, you're going to want to check it out right here, right now. Then we talk about the Super Bowl and a bunch of other stuff towards the end of the podcast. It's a really good one. Check it out right now. All right, so on the phone line right now, we have Sam Ouhaj. Sam and I have a very interesting relationship, and Sam has a very interesting relationship with sports media. I don't want to step on your toes, Sam, but can you tell the audience kind of your background story and how kind of we connected?
So it was back in November, and we connected because the New York Daily News article broke about my release from Sports Illustrated and how a senior in high school was writing for a prestigious company like SI.
Now, explain to the audience how something like this happens and how you got your foot in the door at one of the most historic, it's like a cornerstone of sports media at Sports Illustrated.
Okay, so it's really a great conversation starter, to be honest with you. You just like go up to someone and be like, hey, I work for Sports Illustrated. And they'll be like, you work for Sports Illustrated? And I'll be like, yeah. And they're like, do you want to hear the story? And they'll be like, of course. So what happened was that I was on Twitter. I follow a lot of sports coverage, like media, like stats, analytics, beat writers like Marcus Mosher, all of them. And what happened was that Marcus retweeted a link for a job post, and it was Tommy Jaggy, and he said, I'm looking for writers for Sports Illustrated Bengals Maven. And I just saw Bengals Maven Sports Illustrated, and I was like, you know what? Why not? Like, what's the worst that could happen? So I DM'd Mr. Jaggy. I explained to him, I'm a high school student. Like, I just want to write, and I understand if you can't let me in. And he said, no, of course, just send me a work sample and send me your resume. And soon enough, he was like, I really like your content, and I really like your work. And he's like, I want to make you part of the team. So that's how it all started. And it started back in September. And it just continued for a couple of months. And then the whole story broke out with the New York Daily News and how I got released. It was an interesting 3 months, 2.5 months, to say the least.
Yeah, to say the least. How many articles did you end up writing for Sports Illustrated, Sam?
I got about 10 articles in 2 months, so I was trying to do at least one a week. Sometimes I did 2 a week, but I was balancing college applications at the time and work outside of the Sports Illustrated office. Well, not the office, but my laptop.
So where are you located currently to be able to write about the Cincinnati Bengals, right?
Yeah, so I'm from Newburgh, New York, and it's about, 12 hours from Cincinnati, Ohio, but I know I'm spaced out from where I was doing the beat writing for the Bengals, but honestly, I did enough research and I watched enough film and I did Game Pass and I did PFF and all of that to be familiarized as if I lived in Cincinnati itself.
This is an incredible story, and I told my friends about this story when I saw it break, and nobody believed me that this type of thing could happen. And I think it's so cool in 2020 how a writer, essentially anywhere in the world, can write about any team anywhere because of how global the entire world is. Everybody's connected.
Yeah, no, definitely. And I feel like that's the best part about technology and media and everything nowadays is that I could get on my laptop, I could watch film, I could read some other articles from some great writers like Joe Goodberry of The Athletic, and I could just start to brainstorm ideas and come up with what I'm going to write that's going to make my readers interested in my articles. That's what it was all about when I started originally. It was that I wanted to just come up with the best ideas that are going to get people talking because, it's fun to read articles about this person doing this, but people really want to read, the trade details, what scenarios you think could happen, what you could get for a player. I feel like that's what draws in a lot of audience.
Now, I don't want to be too scandalous, but how did you get caught, Sam?
Oh, it's actually really funny because it was just any other normal day, but my high school wanted to interview me about writing for SI because it was just such a cool thing that was happening, and my high school likes to do career highlights of students. So I explained to my AP literature teacher at the time. I said, I just started writing for SI, and he was like, "You're writing for SI?" And I was like, "Yeah." And he's like, "No way." And I was like, "Of course." I was like, "It's awesome." And he was like, "Let me email the district administrator and we'll get you started." So what happened was that he emailed the district administrator. I got an interview scheduled, and then next thing you know, bam, I'm on the district website, and it's all over my hometown. Like, people are posting it everywhere. They're like, "Look at this kid, like, reaching for the stars." And it was pretty cool. So then what happened was that Spectrum News saw it, and they reached out to me about doing an interview. So next thing you know, I'm doing an interview with Spectrum News, and they pick it up, and then they write about it on their website, and then it goes on Twitter. And that's when the fall happens. So after that article is published, next thing you know, next day, I get a DM from my boss, and he goes, "Sam, I have some terrible news." And I'm like, "What is it?" I kind of already assumed that it was something to do with that. And he was like, "Well, I just got an email from my boss, and we have to release you." And I was like, "Really?" And he was like, "Yeah, I'm super sorry about it, but they're getting ripped apart internally and publicly by the press and the media and all these writers that, I don't know, it was just a whole crazy story that happened." But I understand where those people who were, like, judging what had happened are coming from, because what happened was that 5 days after I started writing for Bengals Maven, SI made the move fully to the Maven company and, I don't know, the ABG company, I'm pretty sure. And they laid off about half of their staff writers that have been writing at SI for many years. And that's awful, because those people really deserve a job no matter what, because that's the reason why I get Sports Illustrated, or I did get Sports Illustrated. It was because of everything that happened with those writers. Like, they were phenomenal writers. Like, that's what made people want to read SI.
No, I 100% agree. And I've had a couple of the writers who didn't get laid off and had to, witness their friends and their coworkers go into a conference room and essentially half the room gets a pink slip. So I get where you're coming from. What'd your parents have to say? Because I think that's another kind of interesting aspect for you.
Yeah, my mom was fully supporting of me and my decision and everything that happened. She explained to me, she was like, stuff like this happens in real life, and it's just the real world. Like, you just got to move and take the learning experience with it. She was obviously not too thrilled that I had to get released because of my age and not my writing, but she explained to me, she was like, that's what happens. And she was like, you just become a better writer day by day, and you just start improving your work and your craft, and it's just a learning experience. And that's really how I looked at it to begin with. It's a learning experience, and it's something to improve and build on.
It's
an
incredible story to me, Sam, because, a lot of the people that I work with and that I'm around as a kind of a young podcaster, a young sports media person, you get these guys who their entire life goal is to work at Sports Illustrated. And you, how old are you right now? Like 17, 18?
I am 17 years old. I will be 18 in May.
This is incredible. At 17 years old, being able to write for a cornerstone, I can't stress this enough, ladies and gentlemen, a cornerstone of sports media. Like, this is essentially the Garden of Eden where everything else blossomed from when we talk about, like, sports media. So the fact that at 17 you can put that on a resume, A, is an incredible feather in your hat, and B, just shows how good of a writer you are at a young age. So let me I need to ask you another question, and this one kind of goes to the team that you were covering. What was interesting about the Bengals that as you were doing a beat writer? Because clearly, I think the majority of people living in New York, the majority of people living outside of the state of Ohio, I don't think the Cincinnati Bengals are the most glamorous team to cover or watch. So what did you like out of covering the team as a beat writer?
So that's the funny story, is that the Bengals never really interested me to begin with. And then, like, I knew about them. I was like, the Bengals, like, when I started getting into sports a couple years ago, I was like, I always knew them for being all right, not too great, mediocre. Marvin Lewis, Andy Dalton, AJ Green, like, I knew them, but I'm a huge Dallas Cowboys fan. Like, I'm a diehard Dallas Cowboys fan. So already in New York, I get publicly scrutinized for it by a lot of my friends and my colleagues just because of liking the Cowboys. But it's all part of the day and part of the game, and I enjoy it. Like, I like talking sports with all of them and covering my thoughts and my ideologies. But it was just the job that was out there was the Bengals, and I was like, you know what? Let's do it. Like, what's so bad about learning about another sports team and taking that and developing my craft? Like I said earlier, is that you just got to take all the opportunities that are presented in front of you. So it was just about taking that and just improving and building upon it. And it was not that the Bengals were interesting, but I found myself, as I was reading about the Bengals and starting covering them, I was like, this is really interesting. Like, I really like this. Like, this team is fun to watch. Like, even though they sucked, they went 2-14 this season. But it was just cool to write about that in the process. Like, my articles from September to November were talking about, like, how they were going to get the number 1 pick, like, why I think they would win a game this year, like, why they need to trade Joe Mixon or Joe Mixon needs to improve. And I ended up writing an article about Tua before his injury, obviously, and that was cool. But now you see Joe Burrow is going to go to Cincinnati, most likely with the number 1 overall pick, and that's just cool to me because it just shows how sports change in the matter of months and how ideologies change in the matter of months, and it's all about how you adapt with that. And that's what the coolest part was about taking something like the Bengals and writing about it. Was just adapting to time and change in the snap of a finger.
So we talk a little bit about, you write for SI, they end up giving you the boot. Are those articles still there for you, or is it still
yes.
archived? Okay.
Yes, they're still up on the site. I actually went and checked a couple days ago because when I've been applying to college, obviously I put on that, I want to go to, that I wrote at SI and everything, and I just send them in my articles, and they read them. They're like, wow, we're really impressed with this. So it's just a cool process to show them my college thing, and I'm glad that they kept them up there.
Yeah, that is a big service to you, because if they would have taken them down, all of a sudden it's just a fever dream, right?
Yeah.
Now, so for me, as I have gotten a little bit more, I don't want to give myself too much credit here, but as you talk to athletes, as you're kind of around sports media a little bit more, you get a little bit more cred with your friends. Did you, at the lunch table or around the water cooler or wherever you were hanging out with your guys in the group chat, when you said something, oh, this team should win, this team is good, this guy stinks, did you get a little bit more credit because you said, hey, none of you are writing for SI?
Yeah, but I never bragged about it when I was around my friends and my buddies and other people I knew. I was just like, this is what I do, and it's really fun to do, and I really enjoy it. And a lot of my friends were very supportive about it. But, I mean, they give me credit to begin with because I speak a lot of facts. I'm about the analytics of the numbers and the player and who's this and who's that. So I actually, what for me was that I was working at a pro shop before the season closed, and the assistant pro and I would talk about sports, and I'd give him my advice for betting, and I helped him win a couple of $1,000s just because of what I told him to bet and how the games were going to play out. I was actually fairly accurate about it, and that was something cool too, but I would have never got that if I didn't write for SI and start involving myself with all those games and covering teams, because I was strictly Dallas Cowboys only. I followed the Dallas Cowboys, and of course every week I thought they were going to win, but just involving yourself with other teams opened so many doors to do so many other things, and people just gave me credit for it, and it's pretty cool.
I got a quick Cowboys story for you. So my best friend, or one of my best friends, he's a Cowboys fan, lives down here near Austin with me, and he told me before the season that the Cowboys were going to go 15-1. That this was the year they were going to win the Super Bowl. The only loss they were going to have was to the Patriots, and that Dak Prescott was going to secure his $40 million deal. All of those things, of course, fell apart like bread and water. So I just wanted to tell you that you're not the only crazy Cowboys fan. All right, you talk a little bit about...
Yeah, every year is our year.
You talk a little bit about analytics, so let's get into the Super Bowl matchup. I have been, in the last 36 hours since the game's pretty much ended, I have been on the hill that I think Mahomes is a hot hand, that this is my guy. I am putting my money on Patrick Mahomes, not only to win the Super Bowl MVP, but for the Chiefs to hoist the Lombardi Trophy. Tell me why I'm right, or tell me why I'm an idiot.
This is the only troubling thing that I've had. This is the first year in the Super Bowl, since I've been watching it, since 2007, that I don't know who I want to win the Super Bowl. I like Patrick Mahomes. I like the Chiefs. I like their story. I like how phenomenal Patrick Mahomes is, but there's just something about the 49ers that I feel that they're going to win this year. And it's due to some of the numbers, and I get it, Jimmy Garoppolo just gets carried by his team, but and he's not on the talent level of Patrick Mahomes. I don't think anyone comes close to Patrick Mahomes. Like, you saw people say Lamar Jackson, but then look at what happened when Lamar Jackson got to the playoffs. You know what I mean? Like, you could be great during the regular season, but it's all about the postseason, and obviously Mahomes has played phenomenal in the postseason, but so has Jimmy Garoppolo. So I just like the 49ers a lot more against the Chiefs. I feel like something about Andy Reid and his clock management, what he's notorious for, and how he's never won a Super Bowl, and Kyle Shanahan and the running game with the 49ers. I just think it's too much for the Kansas City Chiefs, and I really think that the 49ers are going to host the Lombardi Trophy.
Really? So I feel like I'm the only person on this corner right now rolling with Mahomes. Can I tell you my case? Can I plead my case to you, Sam?
Yeah, no, I trust me, Mahomes is the hot hand to pick in the Super Bowl. I don't blame you. It's obvious Las Vegas is going to be a 1.5 point favorite over the 49ers, but that defense on the 49ers is insane. Like, their defensive line and their linebackers, and I mean, their cornerbacks on one side, except for the one guy, I don't remember his name off the top of my head, but he's notorious for getting burned. It was Witherspoon. He was getting burned, obviously, against Stephon Diggs, but a lot of people do. But besides that, I don't really think the Chiefs' offense can match up with the 49ers' defense. But, I mean, they're probably both top 2 units in the NFL. Obviously, the Chiefs have the ability to score in 3 plays, and that's, like, unheard of. Like, they're ridiculous. They could score at any moment with all the speed, but the 49ers match up perfectly to the speed and what they could bring on the defensive line. Like, you see it. They rarely rush people to begin with. Like, they send 3 or 4 at a time, which is normal, I guess, but they still are applying pressure. Like, Nick Bosa is going to win Defensive Rookie of the Year this year, and Quan Alexander is a phenomenal linebacker. There's just something about the defense and that's what's been carrying them a lot this year, is the defense. And then, obviously, the 49ers went out. They got Emmanuel Sanders. Deebo Samuel came alive this year, and the running backs, and that's been really great for Jimmy Garoppolo, because the best situation for a quarterback is to have a great run game, and that's what the 49ers do very well. And compared to the Chiefs, like, Mahomes is able to not benefit from a run game because he has such a phenomenal arm talent and phenomenal accuracy ability and everything like that. So it makes sense to throw the ball 50 times a game with Mahomes, but I don't know. I just think the 49ers are better.
All right, I got some predictions for you, and you're going to tell me if they're hot or cold. Sounds good?
Sounds good.
All right, number 1 prediction. Jalen Hurts is going to have a better pro career than Tua. Hot or cold?
Can you do lukewarm?
All right, tell me why it's lukewarm.
I think Tua is going to be good in the NFL. I did a mock draft about it recently on Blue Chip Scouting. That's a new site I'm writing for, so I'll talk about them a little bit. But I have Tua going to the Chargers, but instead of Miami. They say he's going to be healthy by April, but I mean, that hip injury was pretty scary to begin with, and obviously Tua is known for going out and getting contact and everything, but that injury is going to linger, and I don't know. And I just think Jalen Hurts, I think he's going to be really good in the NFL. I know that he struggles a little bit, and he struggled towards the end with Oklahoma, and obviously in the national championship game 2 years ago with Alabama when they benched him for Tua, and then Tua took Alabama by storm. But I feel like they're both going to be good NFL quarterbacks, but I don't know. Like, Jalen Hurts kind of reminds me a lot of Dak Prescott in a way, but I think Dak Prescott is a lot better than Jalen Hurts will ever be, because that's just my favorite NFL player. But I don't trust Tua's injury, and I feel like it's going to linger a little bit when he gets to the NFL, and he's going to be the only left-handed quarterback in the NFL. So, I mean, like, I give him the benefit of the doubt for that. Like, I feel like that's going to be awesome watching a left-handed quarterback now, because the last one was what, Kellen Moore in 2015, maybe.
Tim Tebow played for a couple years. All right, here's the next one for you. With Joe Burrow going to the Bengals, Baker Mayfield now will be the 4th best quarterback in his division. Hot or cold?
Cold. I think Baker Mayfield is the 3rd best quarterback. I think that Roethlisberger is going to retire next year or the following year. Lamar Jackson's better right now than Baker Mayfield, but he's like I said, Lamar Jackson, he did great. He's the MVP of the season, but you see what happens when he's made the playoffs in back-to-back years. And I mean, like, yeah, they're like, oh, he's a young quarterback and he's learning this and he's learning that, but How do you go away from your game plan in the middle of a divisional round game when you've had a week of rest, 3 weeks of rest to begin with, and you lose a game like that to the Tennessee Titans? I mean, the Titans are really good and they're very underrated for what they made it to in the conference championship. But Baker Mayfield's probably the third best quarterback. But also, too, we don't know how Joe Burrow is going to be in the NFL. I feel like I like Joe Burrow a lot as a person, and I hope he does really good on the Bengals. I really do. I feel like he's going to be fun to watch. But I just heard about Joe Burrow this year, and I feel like a lot of people like it because he went undefeated, he won the Heisman, and he won in college football finals, which is some great accomplishments. But if he was so great, I would have heard about him a couple years ago. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, you've heard about Trevor Lawrence since he was in high school, but you've never really heard about Joe Burrow. And I think that's, like, what's cool about him is that you've never heard about him, and he skyrocketed to this. But I feel like what happens is a lot of scouts start riding the hot hand and they start seeing what's going on, or like what's going on in this year. Like, a lot of people base it off the current year and they're like, oh, this person's phenomenal or this person's great. But I feel like you got to give it a couple years.
That's a very nuanced take, Sam. That's why you write for Sports Illustrated and I don't. All right, last one for you. Taysom Hill is going to take over for the Saints offense next year, and Drew Brees is going to ride the bench. Hot or cold?
Cold. I think Drew Brees comes back another year. I think Taysom Hill stays at his multiple positions that he plays, obviously, and I think Drew Brees, they have another great year, the Saints, but I mean, they're going to get a good draft pick this year. I think that TCU wide receiver Rigor is going to be really good, and I feel like he'll fall to the Saints, and they'll take him because obviously there's only so much Can't Guard Mike could do. You saw Alvin Kamara regress a lot this year. I mean, he was injured, but I don't think Taysom Hill is the quarterback to lead a Sean Payton offense like Drew Brees is. Like, Drew Brees is a Hall of Famer, and he's great, and it's really hard to replace someone like Drew Brees with someone like Taysom Hill, who's just a utility player. And maybe the Saints draft a quarterback and surprise everyone to be the heir to Drew Brees. I don't know. Maybe we could see with the Patriots too this year. A lot of teams need quarterbacks because all these players are just starting to get retired. Like, Brady says that he has another year, but what did he really do on the Patriots this year that was so phenomenal that makes you say, oh, he could play in the NFL another 3 or 4 years? Phillip Rivers is old, and the Chargers need a quarterback. The Steelers are going to need a quarterback. The Saints are going to need a quarterback. There's so many teams that have all these aging quarterbacks, and I don't know.
Sam, tell us where you write again and give the last little plug for them.
Oh, yeah, so I write for Blue Chip Scouting now with Mr. Miller, Dalton Miller. It's just I send him my submissions. I'm allowed to write whatever I want. I explained to him my story. I was like, I hope it's okay because I don't need another turnaround of events. And he said, of course not. I really appreciate you writing for my site and everything like that. Like, it's just fun to do fans. Like, he gets a lot of submissions from people, and it's just cool to have some of my work and just do that in my free time and practice with it while I wait to turn 18, and hopefully people reach out to me when I turn 18 and I get a couple of offers. But I do not mind writing for Mr. Miller and Blue Chip Scouting. It's a great site, and I suggest you check it out because they do a lot over there. They cover a lot of college prospects, NFL. It's great. I did a mock draft for the website, and that was fun to do because I've never done one before with a whole explanation and everything for each player and why I think they would land there. And I also did one for the Tennessee Titans and why they would win the Super Bowl. Obviously, they're out now, but for a while I had people really debating whether or not they were going to win because I called the upset over the Ravens and I called the upset over the Patriots, and people didn't want to believe me. I actually got a lot of slack for it from kids in my hometown because they were like, some of them are Ravens fans now all of a sudden. Obviously, they were the hottest team in football at the time, so everyone was a Ravens fan now all of a sudden. And they were like, no, Lamar Jackson's going to shut them down, blah, 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 like they're going to do great. And then I just, after the game was over, I just posted my article on my Snapchat, and I just put the shrug emoji, and then everyone wasn't too happy about that, but no one said anything.
Sam, always making friends. Well, you got one here. Thanks so much for coming on.
Oh, thank you so much for having me.